Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to give everybody a couple of, well, not a couple of minutes, but 30 seconds or so to join us in the room. It would be really great if you can pop a message in the chat box, if you can see us all and hear us. Tell us where you are this morning, whether the sun's shining, something like that, just while we get everybody in the room and get ready to kick off. And whilst you all do that, I shall get some slides up and running and ready for us to kick off this morning. So hopefully everybody can see my slides as well, which will be another bonus if that works, as well as being able to see and hear and everything else. And I always get really anxious when nobody puts anything in the chat box, because it's like, is the chat box not working, or is it that you can't hear us? So maybe Katie. There we go. Something's in the chat box. Um, uh, Excellent. Thank you, everybody. That's all good. Let's get underway then. So thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm sure everyone is still in recovery from Accountex last week. Really delighted to be running this session today. Some of it, if you came along to some of our sessions at the App Advisory Plus Theatre at Accountex, you may have heard some bits of this. I would apologize for it, but I'm not going to apologize for it because I'm making points that I've been making for a very, very long time, and people are still not listening. So I'm going to keep saying it until we see some action. But we're talking today around, is being a digital firm the key to your success? And I'm delighted to be joined by Katie and Max from Dext this morning, who are our platinum partners App Advisory Plus, which means we always do our app of the month with them in May to coincide with the busiest month of the calendar with Accountex. So we will do a couple of quick introductions before we get going. So anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Will Farnell, founder of Farnell Clark and co-founder at App Advisory Plus. And I'm delighted to say to be joined by Katie and Max. Katie, should come to you first. Do you want to just give a quick intro in terms of who you are and what your background is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm Katie. I've been at Dext for 3.5 years, but I've actually been in accounting tech for 7 now. And prior to that, I was in practice for 13 years as well. So started as an apprentice, did my AAT, worked my way up, and then ended up looking after not only the small business unit, but also the digital transformation project within the firm, moving about 500 clients over to Zero, amongst other tools. And then yeah, moves into accounting tech. I would say I haven't looked back, not tempted when I
Just
look at
every now and again, had a little look over your shoulder. Thanks for that, Katie. And Max, I know it's a similar story, but slightly newer to the tech world. Feel free to give yourself an intro.
Yeah, quite similar to Katie. So my name's Max. Good morning, everyone. I worked my way up again, like Katie, as a AAT apprentice and spent 12 years in practice. Recent role was associate director at Accounts and Legal. We were a full sort of Zero and Dex firm, and specialised in bringing people from cloud-based solutions to onto the cloud, from desktop solutions, should I say, onto the cloud, of which I have done way too many to count. And I recently joined the Dext team 2 months ago. So very fresh to the world of tech, trying to get used to the world of computer coders and understand what it is they're saying.
and no timesheets.
And no timesheets, which is a real fresh air. But yeah, really enjoying my time so far and sort of looking forward to getting stuck in. And my role is a product domain expert, which effectively means that I speak to a lot of accountants, find out what pain points they're experiencing, and then help the product team at Dex to create some solutions for them pain points.
Excellent. So hopefully that gives you a sense that whilst this is a webinar with a software vendor, this conversation today is being had by 3 people that are all accountants, have all worked in practice, have all been involved in digital transformation. So I'm kind of hopeful that this is going to be a really valuable session for everybody today, because this is kind of the reality of the world that we're in. So just in terms of some of the things we're going to cover off on today's session, we've done some welcomes. I'm going to get Katie to just kind of make sure everyone knows about Dext in a moment. But this session is around being a digital firm, and some of you may know I wrote a book in 2018 called The Digital Firm. So I have a few views on what a digital firm means to me. We're going to chat through some of that and get Max and Katie's view on that as well, in terms of when we talk about a digital firm, what do we really mean? So what is it that people should be striving for, or ideally already doing? What's going to come out of that conversation is that there is still a massive competitive opportunity for everybody to adopt this way of working, to really give you an advantage over, as you're going to hear shortly, the majority of the firms that are still not doing this. For those that are not quite there yet in terms of being fully digital, we'll talk a bit about the transition from kind of where you are and wherever you are on that journey to where you need to go. And most importantly, like, what's the impact of doing this, not only for you if you're the firm owner, but your team, and most importantly of all, the clients you serve. We'd love to get questions. That's what brings these sessions to life. So at any point during the session today, pop questions into the Q&A box. We normally aim to get these sessions wrapped up in about 45 minutes, because then if you've got something else scheduled at 11:30, you've got a bit of time to get a coffee or whatever it is you need to do before you go into your next meeting. So that's the plan. But before we do that, Katie, do you want to just kind of let everybody know, if anybody's been hiding under a rock for however many years now, who Dext are and what Dext do?
Yes, of course. Yeah, with pleasure. So actually, I would say, speaking of Accountex, it's the first year where we've not had the majority of people come over and wax lyrical about Receipt Bank and why did you change your brand? It was a perfectly good brand before you changed and all this sort of thing. So that was nice and refreshing. It only takes 3 years to completely rebuild an SEO, apparently. Lessons learned, I think. But essentially, we're a very well-established product, originally branded as Receipt Bank. We've been around for about 14 years within the industry. And that specific product is used for data extraction from invoices, receipts, and bank statements. But we rebranded as a platform about 3 years ago because we now have more than one product, and so it made sense for us to have an umbrella term for all of those, and one of them is Dext Prepare, which is that receipt extraction functionality that people know and love within Receipt Bank. The other one is Dext Precision, which was previously called Xavier Analytics, and is a fantastic tool for health score and workflows and goodness knows what else. It's an absolute beast of a product. It's my firm favorite, and there's almost nothing you can't do with Precision. And then we've also got Dext Commerce, which was previously called Greenback, and that's an e-commerce platform for any digital sales, digital till systems, website sales, anything like that. Captures it all together, applies the right VAT treatment, grosses it up for the fees, and then pops it in within a predetermined net payout amount into your Zero or your QBO. So a platform of 3 products. Our flagship product was one that was previously called Receipt Bank, which is Dext Prepare, which is our data capture tool.
Excellent, thank you, Katie. And the only conversation I did have around people's comments around Dext was a conversation with Sabi, your CEO, who said somebody came up to him and did ask what Dext did, and when he explained it, the customer or the attendee of the event said, "Oh, well, that's okay because we're already using Receipt Bank." Which we thought was, and apparently this accountant was adamant that he was still using the Receipt Bank app.
Brilliant. Okay.
So
We're not quite there yet then. I'm
so,
tempted at this point just to say it's a drunk text.
yeah, still
Then
a
drunk
little bit
text.
to go. I always love talking to you guys at Dext. I mean, for those that haven't heard me say it before, I mean, we became Dext partners when the Dext team consisted of 8 people. So quite a long time ago, and as I wrote in my most recent book, it's Dex, or Seat Bank as it was at the time, was kind of the penny drop moment. It was a point at which I thought, hang on a second, this kind of connects it all together. This gives me the ability to do things that I didn't think we could do as an accounting firm, particularly around the way that we viewed bookkeeping as a service line, because at the point we could get data from our clients kind of within a matter of days of them spending the money. It kind of unlocked the opportunity for everything we've done as a firm and things we're going to talk about as we go through the session today. So let's get cracking in terms of the topic. What do we mean by a digital firm? I guess that's kind of the place to start. You've both worked in firms that you would regard as a digital firm. So what does that mean in reality? Max, let's go to you first because Katie's done a bit of talking already.
Still think, I mean, the scale for this is it's really wide. You can be good looking at a 7 out of 10, but you can be good looking at a 10 out of 10 as well. So I think there's a big scale to what a digital firm means it can be. But I'm going to talk about sort of for me, like not what an accountant does, but like why they do what they do. And accountant is there to support their clients in times of stress, in times of opportunity, and just to be there and to collaborate in real time to give advice. So for me, a digital firm is being able to provide that service in real time. So I mean, the cloud revolution, if you want to call it that, has meant that there's no excuse for it anymore for accountants not to be able to provide that. So on a basic, on a basic sort of outlook of it, we're looking at bank feeds, getting that information in. We're having a pre-accounting tool to get the data collection in, such as Dext. And we're using both of those tools to the best of their ability. We're not just using a cloud-based solution as as we used to use sort of like a desktop-based solution, typing up bank statements, typing up invoices. We're using cloud-based solutions, but we're using them full automation. So if we're looking at Xero, we're looking at click to pay invoices, automated credit control, customized reporting. And if we're looking at Dext, we're looking at setting up a payment method so that when a director pays with his personal card, it automatically pays that invoice off to a director's loan account, or chasing paperwork automatically through the solution. So yeah, for me, it's being able to provide that support, that collaboration in real time to your client.
Brilliant. And Katie, what's your take? What's your definition of a digital firm in this
Yes, I've
context?
been thinking about this because I've been kind of throwing together ideas into some kind of article, blog, I don't know, yet to be decided on what it is to set up as a new firm. And I know that we don't all have the luxury to do this. Like some of us are in extremely established firms, possibly even over 100 years old. But if we were all going to go around and set up a firm tomorrow, what would we want to be in? What would we want to have in place? And I would say that we would want digital processes from start to finish. We would want to onboard clients digitally using some kind of digital proposal software, engagement letter software, money laundering software. All of that would want to be digitized. The experience for a client, I guess, would be that, yes, they could come in and meet you face to face, because let's be honest, nothing replaces that sometimes, but that they have always got the option to see you remotely, jump onto a Zoom call, obviously still have phone calls. I know they still exist as well. But the majority of correspondence is really easily done through kind of portals, so that if they have a mortgage application, then they have everything they need at their fingertips when they need it, in order to literally take it from here and send it to there. So I would say it's following that client journey, obviously coming from customer success as well. It's following that customer journey from start to finish, and ideally, although we can't do it all at once and bring all of these systems in now, especially when a lot of people will have kind of older systems that will need cleansing and transferring and all of that sort of thing. I think our end goal should be that full customer journey from start to finish would be within a digital structure.
Yeah, I think that's really important, that kind of whole end-to-end journey. This isn't it's easy to think about this when we talk about it in terms of it's about the cloud accounting technology. But that's just one element of it, isn't it? It's actually about what does it look like from kind of client lifetime value, first contact to last contact. And I was at an event in the US a few years ago, and somebody defined digital disruption in a way that has always kind of stuck with me. And they said that digital disruption is the process, or the steps of removing friction from a process. So when you look at everything that we do, as firms, where are the opportunities for us to remove any friction from the way that we engage with in our case a client, and that means that's onboarding, that means that's payments, that means that's when they've got a question and they want to ask it. How do we break down those barriers and remove that friction? So I think it's a really interesting way of looking at kind of the idea of digital disruption. And ultimately, whenever we talk about using technology and using digital tools and processes, it's about, look, how do we make our clients' lives better, and easier for them to kind of deal with us in
It
terms
sets
of
expectation for the client as well, doesn't it? If their
yes.
journey with you, if they're and again, I know that we can't do this with existing clients because they've already had the journey that they've had. But if any new client that comes into a business has a fully digitized onboarding journey from start, and then you say, and also we want you to take photographs on this app, and also we want you to, I don't know, set some tracking categories up in Xero, then all they know is a digitized experience, isn't it? So it's
Yeah.
easy to make sure that they're always kind of doing what you require for them within your services.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think from my view, in terms of when I talk about a digital firm, and having kind of written about it quite a bit, I've had plenty of time to think about this. And in terms of some of the stuff that you said, Max, around kind of using the technology, my challenge back on this all the time is like, where's the tipping point? So it's okay to say, yes, we're using Zero and Dext. But how widely are you using Zero and Dext? So like if you've got 100 clients, how many of them are using it? Because there's a difference between a firm that's got 100 clients and 5 are using it, and a firm that's got 100 clients and 80 are using it. So it's like,
Yeah.
where does the scales tip, where you can say, actually, you know what, we're really doing this. And I've always said it's 75%. So like, of your applicable clients. So I get that not every client is going to fit. Some clients just won't pay the fees for that level of tech stack. But of the clients that kind of are applicable, then if you haven't got 75% of them using it, then it's like, well, why not? Why have you got some doing it and some not? Because that doesn't feel like you really believe in what it is you're doing. And for me, it kind of extends into, well, if we're getting benefits from this, so if we're using automated invoicing, and we're using Go Cardless to collect payments, then that's an indicator as well. So like, are we collecting 75% of our fees through direct debit? Because I mean, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Um, and this is where it kind of gets interesting. And I've talked a lot about adoption, and I regularly kind of challenge some of the rhetoric that vendors are putting out in terms of levels of adoption. And I wrote in 2018 about 20% adoption. I felt in 2018 that 20% of firms were had adopted cloud accounting. Let's refer to it as cloud accounting. And at the time in 2018, I said, well, if we take that step further and say, who's truly digital in terms of a digital firm, it was probably about 2% of the market. I wrote my second book last year in 2023, and I said that cloud adoption was 20%. Now, it isn't a case of it didn't move in 5 years. It's just it became very clear that I was overambitious in 2018. And when I talk to people about 20% adoption now, it kind of shocks people a little bit. And we talked to Accountex last week, that Dext have just over 12,000 or so partners globally. And I don't know what the breakdown is in terms of numbers in the UK, but let's just pick a number out of the air and say it's 7,000. It's your biggest market. I don't know. You might have a better idea than me, but we don't have to go into detail. Depending on who you listen to, there's somewhere between about 34,000 and 90,000 accounting firms and bookkeeping firms in the UK. It's quite a broad spectrum. But even if we go at the lower end there and say it's 35,000, then what we're saying of your partner firms in the UK, assuming it's 7,000, that's just me speculating, that's 20%. And okay, there's other tools out there in the market. I get that. You guys are the market leaders, though. And it comes back to this point that if you've got a partner that's a partner because 5 of their clients are using Dex and they've got 100 clients, then I can't bring myself to count them in those numbers in terms of true adoption. So it's kind of quite startling. I mean, am I wildly out here? I mean, you guys are talking to accountants all the time. Am I just deceiving myself with these numbers?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, he just had to stand on the stand at Dext over the last few days at Accountex and have a few conversations with people. And I think that is probably the realistic outlook on the industry, which is exciting. There's still a lot of opportunity there for practices, for clients, for vendors. So it's not
I'm glad,
all.
I'm glad you're looking on the positive side, Max. I'd say it's downright depressing that we're still at this level, because I mean we're going to talk about kind of why this should just make no perfect sense, and why it kind of just feels like a no-brainer. Why would we not be doing this stuff? And that for me was the driver for me in 2009 when I said, right, every client we've got is going to use online accounting tools because it just made perfect sense to me. But Katie, I mean, again, from your point of view, conversations you're having, am I deluded or
No, I mean, I would actually say you're being optimistic with those numbers.
wow?
Obviously, I'm quite close to what to what the numbers really are. I won't say specifically, but as you say, we're the market leaders. We know we've got the most out of anyone, and the numbers that you've suggested are optimistic. So it does kind of it does confuse me a little bit, because I wonder what a lot of people are doing in their day to day. If they're not using a data extraction tool, and if Dex isn't the one for you right now, then use something like that is, because I would just at this point I don't feel like we all need to be like super aggressive competitively. I think we just want to see the industry really flourish and accountants do really well. And eventually, when you want to take data capture seriously, you will come to Dex because we're the best ones. But for me, just taking the first step is really important. And I like, just I guess just a story from when I started off my project back in, I'm going to say it must have been about 12 years ago now. What does that put it? That puts us at about 2012, doesn't it? Just sounds like forever ago. But I can remember being super excited, running off and buying Zero in bulk, as we all did at the time, and starting to move all the clients over and thinking, this is absolutely brilliant. I've never used technology like it. And I stand by that. I'm not saying that's not the case. Loved the bank feeds, loved the multi-access, the multi-user, log in from anywhere, invite as many people as you want, because I'd come from the old days of clients driving in with their laptop because they didn't know how to get a Sage Line 50 backup off of it. And so I would have to go down with my memory stick to plug it in, and they would travel an hour back home again with their laptop, and they do that every quarter. So this felt like revolutionary. But I got about, I'm going to say, 3 months into the project, and I suddenly thought, as much as I love it, I think it's absolutely brilliant. What I've suddenly realized is I'm not really saving any time on any of the jobs. Like, it's almost like I've upgraded the experience, but I've not improved the workflow. And it was only when I coupled Zero with a data extraction tool where we could throw purchase invoices in it. We were still getting a huge amount of paper and PDF bank statements at the time. I think potentially people have moved on from that, although I don't know based on that bank feed stat. But But so we were then also doing the bank data extraction through the extraction tool as well, getting all of the purchase ledger stuff in, getting all of the receipts in, and that was the real key. That was the turning point for me with running our project. So it is about having all of the right tools in place and all of the pieces of the jigsaw, and not just picking up a piece of cloud software and applying the same workflows to it that you've
Absolutely.
done. Like historically, you have to look at it with fresh eyes, and also depending on how your firm's structured, how big you are, how big your firm is, you will have multiple stakeholders within the business, and every single one of them has got a really important opinion on how these products should be used. So from a partner point of view, maybe you wanting to save time and really improve recoverability rates on the jobs. Maybe from a manager point of view, it's about being able to manage your portfolio really effectively. But maybe from a junior's point of view, it's about they don't want to sit and type bank statements out into spreadsheets, or they want to really grow and develop and learn how to do as much as possible on a job as quickly as they can. And so I would say bring all of those people together and have everyone devise the best workflow within the products that you're investing in, because let's be honest, they're not cheap. It's a big investment for any firm to have to buy software. So making sure that you're using it to its maximum capacity with all of the features across as many clients as you can that it's going to be effective for. But definitely bringing everyone along on the journey as well is really important, I think.
Yeah, I mean the key point I picked out of that bit is and it's hugely relevant, Katie, is that this requires a different business model, doesn't it? It's like
Yeah.
the technology that is available to us now doesn't fit the old process. So the way that we used to get a quarter's worth of data and we'd use batch entry to kind of key in data, it
Yeah.
just doesn't work. If you try and key data into Zero or QBO or Sage Business Cloud, whatever you're using, you're going to be less efficient. It's going to take you longer to key the data than it would to batch enter into Sage Line 50.
And I'll
So,
tell you an interesting one with that is that I've met a number of firms over the last 7 years that I've worked with where they've almost been a little bit worried about adopting cloud technology because they don't know how to give their trainees the right development within the practice.
mm,
If they're always only ever experiencing cloud, it's a little bit the
yes,
same around bringing children up in this digital era, isn't it? Like, how are they ever going to experience playing out in the snow if they're just on an Xbox all the time? That, do you know what I mean? It's almost like we need like firms are struggling to understand what does development look like now, and I do think
yes,
there's something that we need to think of for that as well, because it almost feels a little bit sadistic to say we're going to still force our trainees to do everything with like a big manual cash book and do a full cash book reconciliation because I had to do it that way, and so that's the only way that everyone else learns as well.
yeah,
But I think also that forms part of a digital firm also, is how do we digitally onboard staff members coming fresh out of school so that they still understand the fundamentals of accounting, and I think that's a big part of
yeah.
a digital firm too.
And Max, we had a question on that, didn't we, at Accountex? Somebody actually asked that question, didn't they? Like, how do we make sure that what we're seeing is that we're getting junior accountants come in and they're learning how to do stuff on Zero or whatever it is, and they don't understand the fundamentals of a T account, double entry bookkeeping, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a strange. I think the role of an accountant is changing. I would like to see the boards do a little bit more in terms of addressing that issue around an accountant being a bit more commercially aware, as opposed to just being a bookworm in history. I know me and Katie were probably sort of like early adopters into the whole AAT apprenticeship world, but now there's not much of a stigma there anymore. A lot more accountants coming through that apprenticeship route and coming up through as a chartered accountant that way. That means you're getting people who aren't, typically book smart people who have had to go to university and study degrees. You're having people from different backgrounds, and there is a bit more of a sort of like business acumen around an accountant. And I think cloud technology means that yes, we are going to free up time doing the bookkeeping and the cashing in numbers in the background, and more time spent in front of clients. So I know even, I've got friends who've studied law, and they do a lot of things around like scenarios, and they'll go into a room and they'll basically get interviewed as part of one of their exams. I would love to see the accounting industry work a bit more around that. And I think this is a quote of yours: Will, technology isn't the next best thing, people are. And I think it's definitely rings true. And I think I would like to, one, see that start from the sort of ACCA, ACA, AAT boards, and have a bit more sort of focus on what it is now to be an accountant. We do have tech to do some of the work, and how to approach a bit more business advisory as opposed to just accountants. But again, I mean, you're still going to understand the debits and credits. If you're doing a set of year-end accounts, you're still going to produce a set of working papers, and I suppose it's just structuring it properly. And I think probably people get more understanding of how things can be done using tech. So we used Dext Precision, and we like mapped out workflows of producing VAT returns. I think I did my first VAT return something like 3 years into being an accountant. The first 3 years I just made brews, collected sandwiches, and did that sort of thing. But now when I ran a firm, we had everyone using Dext Precision. It was a flow, and they knew exactly, right, okay, this flow says that I need to check if there's any assets with VAT on, double check them. Is there any, where's the liability code up to? Let's double check invoices with, we've been to B&Q 6 times, and 5 times we've claimed VAT back on, but 1 time there hasn't. And yes, the tech is bringing that information to us in terms of insight, but it's given us a far more understanding, and basically empowering junior accountants to be able to take on tasks that they wouldn't have been able to do until 3-4 years into their journey. So I think there is pros and cons to tech.
It's down to us to control it, isn't it? As the principals in a firm, it's like making sure that we're giving the opportunities for those trainees to actually step outside of the comfort zone of the tech and actually do the technical things. I want to come back to this kind of idea of the process, because clearly we've got technology that's been built to enable us to work in a particular way. And I've had the benefit of having spent some time talking to Hamish Edwards on a couple of panels recently. And for those who don't know, Hamish was the other co-founder of Xero. And we've had some really interesting conversations. And I put to Hamish that there was a quote that Rod Drury, the other co-founder of Xero, said a number of years ago when they were talking about bank feeds. And Rod said the reason we have bank feeds is to enable business owners or their advisors to do a little bit every day. And I've kind of put the challenge to Hamish in terms of, like, how do you feel about the way that the market has adopted and followed the vision that you had for the product? Because what's really interesting, and you may have seen some of the LinkedIn posts and the comments around some Xero research that I've been talking about quite a bit recently in terms of adoption of bank feeds and how people are using Xero. And this was research that Xero published autumn last year, I believe it was, where they said that only 37% of users are using bank feeds. Now, I need to caveat this, because what this wasn't was Xero looking at connected banks to their data. It was all a research piece where they went out with surveys, and the feedback was all based on surveys. So it isn't a case of Xero have said, yeah, only 37% of orgs have got a bank connected. So we need to caveat it a little bit. But based on the research, which you hope was representative, the research told them that only 37% of users are using bank feeds, which means 63% are not. The research also said that 31% are using pre-accounting tools. And as we said at the Accountex panel last week, that for me just feels way too high. I'm not sure I believe that number. It would be great if they were. Dext would be delighted. But it's not happening yet. So I mean,
I can just add something, and this is going to feel like a bit of a product plug, but it's based off of something that I read yesterday on LinkedIn when we were promoting this session, and somebody was saying that there are still a number of banks that don't don't provide bank feeds. And I don't think there's too many. I think there's a handful and there's a couple of credit cards. So shameless product push. We've got 6,000 bank feeds in Dext Prepare. And most of the time, they're not really needed because you already have your bank feed set up in Xero. But I just wanted to say, if it is a bank that doesn't work in Xero, we might have it in Dext Prepare. And as much as it's not going to help that stat, it will help your workflows.
Yes, and I actually use not so much the feeds, but the statement
Yeah,
extraction for a client that I do some stuff for based in the British Virgin Islands where they don't have the bank feeds.
yeah.
So that again is just a way to kind of enhance that workflow. But this is the point. It's like, so what do we think is like the barriers here? I mean, you've got and Hamish also said that he had 63 meetings with HSBC to get an HSBC bank feed in the UK. And here we are, only 37% are using it. So what I mean, why? It's like it's mind blow, isn't it? Like that means that people are where they don't need to in some cases, not all cases, are either keying data or uploading CSVs. Like what's going on? And I guess the other question for us to think about is like, who's got to change it? So again, one of the posts yesterday, Katie, we saw somebody, a vendor was saying that some of this rests with vendors. It's an interesting angle, and I've often said that vendors have to do education because their technology requires us to adopt a different model and a different approach to get the most out of that technology. And if accountants don't know what that and bookkeepers don't know what that new model is, then the vendors have got to help do that education. But ultimately, this should be about it's the right thing for clients, it's the right thing for firms. So the onus is on the firms to do it. But what do you both think on that? What's the barriers and who needs to take the action?
I think it's a mixture of everyone. I think accountants are yeah, can be quite stuck in our way sometimes. And I even heard someone say last week they didn't use bank feeds because when the bank feed drops every sort of 3-4 months due to new security and factors, that it's a pain to get a client to go on, log on to their bank account and reconnect that feed. So instead, they ask them to send them a CSV file, which they have to log on to once a month, every month, extract it, email it. So, I mean, that point is totally, in my opinion,
We'll
totally.
get onto that once a month in a moment, Max, because as we know, once a month just isn't good enough.
Yeah. So yeah, mind blowing for me. I think the stats of, even if it's 35% with the considerations that the British Virgin Isles and Jersey and there's a few strange private banking accounts don't work, them stats are still scarily low in my opinion.
Mm.
And I don't think there's any excuse to not be able to provide that service. I think as an accountants, we're bound by a set of ethics of professional competence and due care, and for us, for you to have due care on your client and to really sort of be able to advise on tax properly, proactively, not after the year end when it's too late to make any changes, to be able to advise when there's real sort of cash flow issues and they can't afford to pay their staff at the end of the month. To be able to do that, you need both of those things: a bank feed or an extremely well-trained team who go and put those bank statements into Xero on a regular basis, and
Yeah.
also a free accounting tool to get all that information in real time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's vital.
I'm going
Katie,
to be a little bit more empathetic as to why I think people haven't got it in place. It might not be specifically to do with bank feeds, but I feel like I mentioned earlier, there's a specific way that you would run a practice now if you were setting up tomorrow, isn't there? And then there's a whole different way that you're having to run your practice because it's established and you've been working with some clients for over 30 years or whatever it is. And I think when it's the latter, when it's the one where you're in an established business trying to create change from the inside out, I think people. I think people just struggle to know where to start. I actually spent a lot of time last year creating a getting started guide, which you could download from our website. And it's for people who just don't know how to take the first step. And there's so many facets to it. It's things like really understanding the change curve. So how are your staff going to react? It might be that you think it's a great idea, but if you don't effectively communicate to your team why there are changes coming and how it's going to benefit them and why you're investing in a specific project and potentially even what process you've gone through to choose the right product for your firm, then people will just be they'll feel like their job's at risk. They'll be really concerned that it's going to completely change what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. The fact that what you're trying to do is make their life better is really easily communicated. But if you don't do that, then people just feel like they potentially they're in trouble. And I've spoken to a lot of firms where that layer of middle management especially feel quite at risk because they'll never use a product like Dext Prepare. It will probably be their teams who are using it on behalf of clients. And so they completely get missed out of training. They get missed out on the communication of why we're trying to do effective change within the practice. And so therefore their response to it is to reject it because they don't understand it. And so there's a lot of facets to expecting changes within a firm, and it is things like effective communication plan both internally and externally as well, setting and some of this is going to sound really obvious, but setting a really clear goals and objectives and a vision for the project and where you want to get to and when, with some dedicated timeframes in place so that it feels piecemeal. Because actually if you just say, right, we're going to move 500 clients onto a cloud solution with bank feeds, where do you start? But if you say, right, we're gonna break this down, we've got a segmentation of our 500 clients that at some point in the future need to be moved onto a cloud solution. But actually, we're going to work with this 10 first because they're quite forward thinking and they'll be easy for us to have the conversation with them first. And then the next month, we're going to move these 5. And then the next month, we're going to move these 20. If you then build out that project plan, then you will move 500 over 3 years. But you have to break it down because it feels so overwhelming to move a practice who hasn't previously, behaved like that, to then moving like full circle into being a fully digitized firm.
Yeah. And Kate, for
And we
just a quick question on this while you've talked through that. I mean, did you imagine for a second when you went to your first vendor role that in 2024 you would still be having this conversation?
No, absolutely not. It's actually one of the main reasons I left practice as well, because I had a real vision for what I wanted the landscape in the UK accounting market to look like, and what was possible within the accounting landscape, what firms could look like. And I knew by staying at the firm that I was at, that like I could be a part of it, I guess. By
Yeah.
leaving, I could be a part of the change.
And your first role in tech was doing exactly this, wasn't it? It was helping firms migrate.
Yeah.
And all this time on, we're still talking about those fundamental migration things.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of time. There's something really important I want to talk about, which is around, we've talked about the fact that we get daily feeds, we get daily bank data, we use tools like Dext to get data from clients on a daily basis. And at Accountex last week, I did a straw poll on 4 separate occasions, asking attendees who is doing bookkeeping for their clients at least on a weekly basis. The response was less than 5%. So less than 5% of accountants and bookkeepers are doing bookkeeping on at least a weekly basis for the clients that they're working for, and in many cases being paid to deliver bookkeeping services. This is the heart and the root, fundamentally for me, of the problem that we have. And my challenge to anybody that is in the 95%, and some of you may be on this session and not clear in terms of why should you be making this shift. A couple of the challenges I would throw at anybody that's doing this is, firstly, if you're employed as a bookkeeper or financial controller in an organization and you didn't reconcile the bank every day, you wouldn't keep your job for very long. So The second one is if you're a firm owner, my guess is you reconcile your bank account for your firm at least on a weekly basis. So you know who owes you money, who you need to chase for money. Yet when it comes to clients paying us to deliver a service, we make a conscious decision to do the bookkeeping to enable us to do the VAT return or the management accounts. This is the heart of the problem that we have to address, because the opportunity that is in our laps right now is to be able to deliver a far superior service to our clients, to deliver insight that they've never had before. This is what the technology ultimately lets us do. And until we make a conscious decision that we're going to adapt our business model to reflect what the technology is designed to give us, we are not going to make the progress. And we will at some point, and I hoped, and I'm sure Katie hoped, that we would have passed that tipping point now. And that tipping point is the point at which enough of us are doing this stuff that we start to have an impact on the firms that are not doing it. So we get to a point where enough of us are doing this that the market, the wider market, starts to understand and has different expectations from what they might get from accountants and bookkeepers. And at that point, the scales tip. Because then the firms that are not doing it will start to see clients move when they realize there's a better deal somewhere else. Um, I mean, you both. I mean, Max, I know particularly that you were in a firm that grasped the concept of daily bookkeeping. Katie, I'm not sure whether your firm had progressed to that, but clearly it's something you're talking to firms about now. I mean, Max, why would firms not why would firms not do it? I mean, that's probably not the right question to ask you, but what was a driver for you in your firms to kind of make that decision to say we're going to touch client data on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think, well, we pride ourselves on being that sort of more than once a year. That was our whole slogan, but that meant, you know, we were accountants who didn't just do tax filing. We were accountants who helped you run your business and helped make a tangible difference to what it is you're trying to do. And to have to do that, you need to have exactly just in the basic form, who do you owe money to, who owes you money, you know, real-time information so you can make real-time business decisions. So yeah, anywhere between daily and weekly bookkeeping for me is absolutely perfect. I think people will say it's not very efficient doing bookkeeping sort of daily because you have to log into software and do everything. But if you get your operational sort of structure right and you can do
And use
it,
the right tools.
use the right tools, using everything properly, it can be quite a sort of military operation and can be quite, efficient where the team log in the morning, all of their clients are there, they can sort them into who's got documents that need processing, and within, the first hour of the day, all of their clients have had all of their bookkeeping up
Yeah,
to
this,
date.
this
So
is it. And I mean, I've talked in books before about the fact that but Dext for us is our bookkeeping management system. It gives us a visibility of what we need to do, because often there isn't any data for you to process for a client. So when you start looking at, well, how much time do we spend on average across all of our client base? It's a matter of minutes. It's a matter of minutes a day
yeah,
that
Don't you
you're
also, and
spending.
we've obviously got things like in-app messaging within our products as well. So it will tell you really quickly when there's missing transactions that have gone out of the bank in zero but don't appear to be indexed. So then you can chase people automatically on the day for information that might still be in their purse or in their back pocket. Whereas if you wait a month, like who knows where that receipt's got to, you know?
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm conscious of time. If anybody's got any questions, pop them in the Q&A box now, and we'll come to those. The one final kind of point I just want to make, because we're all hearing lots about AI at the moment and how AI is going to replace us and everything else. For AI to replace us as accountants and bookkeepers, it means we need to adopt it. We are talking here about incredibly low levels of adoption of basic automation tools in terms of pre-accounting tools, cloud general ledgers. 15 years after I kind of started my journey here, we are still talking about 20% adoption. So this is kind of a slightly sarcastic way of saying, look, don't worry, AI is going to come and take your jobs, because if we can't get firms to adopt cloud accounting, what chance have we got that they're going to go out and spend a load of money on AI tools to do the job for them? So that's a saving grace. As we kind of draw to the end, I always like to just kind of wrap up with some key takeaways. The key points that I really want you to take away from the session today, and I understand and I expect that the vast majority of you on this call today are in this 20%. You are in this 20% that are doing it. And therefore, apologies if some of this has kind of been a bit a case of teaching granny to suck eggs. We kind of know, but what I want you to understand, because most people that are in this 20% don't understand that it's only 20%. So the point is that you are still early adopters. You are in the top quartile of accounting firms in the UK because you're doing this stuff. So that's the point to take away, that you have a massive competitive advantage over 80% of the market that are still not doing this. On the product adoption curve, the early adopter stage is where we talk about the profit opportunity. There is a massive opportunity for you because you are still early adopters. When we do this, we've got to think about people, process, and tech. We've got the tech's available to everybody. We've got to build the right processes that are going to underpin the tech, make the most of the tech, and we've got to make sure our people are happy to use it and are using it in the right way. The only way we're going to get real insight for clients is by doing bookkeeping on a regular basis. 5%. So if you are doing bookkeeping at least weekly, you are in the 5% block, not the 20%, the 5%. So you are doing things that pretty much everybody else in your local market is not. If you're not shouting about that, you need to start shouting about it. You're giving clients something that nobody else is. So continue to build that, continue to focus on how you can make that better than it already is. And I guess finally, Katie and Max, people are going to be at different stages, but assume we've got people that are still kind of finding the right approach here. What's your one tip? Where should people start? And Katie, you've written a guide, so I'll come to you first on that.
I would say whichever change project it is that you're taking on, so whichever piece of digital technology you're trying to implement within the firm, set a really set goals and objectives and a deliverable time frame in order to get there, and maybe even create an accountability group to make sure that you're moving on track.
Yep. And Max. Perfect. I was just about to say, keep everyone accountable. Exactly what Kate says, but keep everyone accountable. But what I would say is, one of my point in how to do this as profitably as possible, as efficiently as possible, is one of our team mentioned this the other week. You wouldn't invite a plumber around to your house and tell them what tools to use. You've been employed as the business's professional advisor. They trust you. So for me, it was pick a certain set of tools. So for me, it was Xero and Dext for every single one of my clients, and learn how to use them properly, become absolute experts in them, and run your operation through them. And yeah, that way you're going to be working as efficiently as possible, providing the best service as possible. And it's a lot easier to onboard more and more clients onto a cloud when you're doing the same thing on the same tool over and over again.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. And we've had a question that kind of is pretty relevant to that. So the question is, I have clients I've taken on and explained that we operate a digital regular approach, but then clients do not deliver their information. I know I've failed in communicating this. Any suggestions on how to bring them in? So this idea of like you've said to clients, like, this is the way we work, and then they don't send you the information. How do you go about tackling that? Max, you've done it very recently, so you've almost said it there in terms of dictating process, but how do you encourage clients to kind of provide that information when you need it?
Yeah, so I think first thing is that the why thing again. So making sure they understand why it is you're doing it. It's not just you're not just pecking their head for no reason. You're doing this because you want to make a tangible effect on their business, and whether that's like increasing cash flow or understanding where the business is making or losing money, and getting that insight there. And then for me, we would put clients on effectively like a watch list. If they didn't want to play ball and didn't want to do what we were doing, we would warn them, this is how we do it. This is the reason why we do it. And, all of our clients all sing off the same hymn sheet. And if you don't want to do it, and I totally understand that, but that's not the service we're trying to provide here. It's making, us not efficient. We're spending a lot of time chasing you. We're spending a lot of time doing that. And, we don't mind doing that. However, something needs to change. So we're either gonna, if you only want well, we would never even offer someone a once a month service. It wasn't something that was with us. We would just simply say, unfortunately, we can help you look elsewhere, or we can you can play by the book, and we can go through that. I do appreciate that we had a lot of sales leads coming through, and it was quite easy to have that conversation. But 9 times out of 10, when you had that conversation, people wouldn't leave. They would get their
Change behavior.
together.
I think it's really important to think about this from a pricing point of view as well. The easiest thing to do is to say to a client, look, we've given you a price for the services based on the assumption that you follow the process that we set out. If you don't follow that process, we have to look at the fee.
Yep.
So it's almost a case of it's fine if you don't want to follow the process. That's okay. In Max's case, it wasn't. They'd be shown a door. But if you don't want to lose those clients, it's a case of if you want to do it differently, it's going to cost you more. But then secondly, it's about education. It's about making sure that you spend the time with a client, help them understand why you want them to follow that process, and make sure that you don't give them too much slack. So for a long time, and it was partly down to a seat bank in the very early days, helped us build what we referred to as a welcome team. And our welcome team would work with clients for the first few months, and they would be checking in every week and say, "Oh, we noticed you haven't sent anything through to Dext. Are you having a problem with your app?" So it's just making sure that you work with clients to make sure that they follow the process and have a penalty. They've got to pay more. If they don't follow the process, then the price you gave them is on the assumption that they follow that process.
It's the
So
carrot and the stick, isn't it? I think the stick is we charge you more. There's a number of different carrots that you can use, and another one for me might be arranging a client event once a month where you get your clients to come in, and then not only are they chatting with other clients who are getting the best out of the service that you're offering, but it also gives you an opportunity to do a little bit of, I don't know, tips and tricks and training, bit of communication, give them a bacon sandwich,
yeah,
nice client service.
bacon sandwich. Always going to win with a bacon sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So just in terms of final wrap up then, we have another couple of or Dex have a couple of webinars coming up. The next one is on basis period reform, which is on 22nd of May, and I'm doing another session with Dex on the 6th of June at 11 a.m. It's almost a rerun of what was our busiest session at Accountex, with Stephen, Dex's Chief Product and Technology Officer, where we're going to be talking about AI developments and the impact of AI developments on accountants and bookkeepers on the 6th of June. It was a fantastic session at Accountex. It was literally blocking the aisle, so clearly a topical topic. So do join us for those. I hope today's session has been valuable. This is a pet topic of mine. I love talking about this stuff because it's so very, very important for us as accountants, for the benefits on our team and our clients. So I hope you found it useful. Sorry that we have sort of gone slightly over what I had suggested we might, but that means that we were having a good conversation. Hopefully it's been valuable to you. Thank you to Katie and Max for joining us. We will circulate a recording of the session for you. So if you want to listen back to it again, you are very welcome to. Thank you all for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you on our App of the Month webinar next month in June. Thank you, Katie and Max. Have a great day.
Thank
Thanks,
you very much.
everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.